Hello everyone, this is David from Automotive Press. I have a Mercedes-Benz E-Class here in a new version called the All-Terrain, which is sort of like a station wagon, but it's being lifted a little bit and bumped up with different features outside and inside to make this thing closer to an SUV. So this is something that I really like about Mercedes and other brands, which is trying to convince us that station wagons are actually a better choice than a typical SUV, which sits higher and they're more awkward to drive. Whereas the station wagon just have an advantage of a lower center of gravity and, typically speaking, better handling. But you still don't want to lose out on the capability of SUV, so they bring up some of those features into this particular station wagon and make it look more like SUV, so that a typical crossover buyers will also maybe choose this one versus larger and more expensive SUV. But having said all that, what I really want to talk about today is the Mercedes E-Class lineup. In addition to this, of course, you can get more of a traditional four-door sedan. You can get the coupe. Many different variations of the E-Class are available. And what I really like about the Mercedes approach to E-Class over the many, many decades that he had is that where other Japanese have failed in this market, Mercedes continue to produce this solid lineup. So for example, Lexus, Infiniti, Acura have all tried to mimic and maybe even beat up Mercedes with a mid-size luxury segment like Lexus GS, which unfortunately didn't sell well, or even the Acura RLX, which also didn't do too well. But Mercedes, along with perhaps BMW with the 5 Series, continue to do solid sales. Not a great amount of sales anymore, but a decent amount of sales. So I wanted to show you why E-Class continue to be the class leader when it comes to mid-size segment. So as you know, Mercedes produce many different types of sedans, crossovers, and SUV. And I actually had a $180,000 S-Class flagship last week, and I have the E-Class this week in this wagon version. And you know what? I actually like this one better. Driving it every day to and from work or to a supermarket, the S-Class was too big and a little bit awkward. Yes, it does have amazing amount of technology and safety and luxury features, but it's overkill, it's overdone. This one, for basically half the price or less, performs better, from my opinion, as an everyday car. It has lots of power and torque from the 3-liter 6-cylinder turbocharged engine, and it has just the right amount of road feel in terms of steering, and then the cornering and handling. It's also quite decent, actually better than the S-Class in many ways. So I think the E-Class, along with its smaller sibling C-Class, will continue to play a solid role in the luxury segment because it does everything well and it checks off all the marks when it comes to providing luxury features, comfort, quietness, and a fantastic engine, along with a decent, maybe even good handling in comparison to other luxury cars I've driven. Many of our competitors, including the 5 Series, it's just a bit boring to drive, but this E-Class feels actually quite fun, has a good agile character, and I'm really enjoying it this week so far. If you have seen one of my previous videos, I talk about how much I like wagons compared to SUV because it sits a little bit lower, generally speaking, give you a little bit better handling. It's easier to maneuver in city, and you can of course go into underground parking with a lower roof, and it's not a problem. And this Mercedes E450 is particularly interesting because it's not just a normal wagon, it has some elements of an SUV or crossover mixed in. So for example, if I were to open the back here, sure, you don't get as much of a taller opening here, but there's plenty of space to put things in, and it actually goes quite deep. In fact, it's deeper than most other mid-size SUV I've seen. So it's a little bit lower, but longer this way, which is more helpful for me when I have to carry something larger in the back. And of course, this is all lowered too, so you don't have to worry about lifting too high. And cleverly, Mercedes have this cover in the back that moves up and down with the lift back in the rear. So when you close this, this also comes down automatically, which is kind of a neat feature. Most of all, I really enjoy driving the E450. Yes, it's not a sports car, it's not a sports sedan per se, but it has a pretty good balance of a solid handling. It has surprisingly good road feel for a luxury mid-size car, especially compared to some of its competitors. And when you're driving in twisty road, well, actually gives you pretty flat cornering capability. So the ride and handling is above average for this type of segment. And in terms of quality, Mercedes-Benz has always built a really reliable and actually well-built vehicles. And you can tell if I do a quick engineering audit, the panel fit well. All of the panels from front to back is also really well done. And the most important of all, the paint finish, when you kneel down and look at it, is fantastic paint job. I think it's one of the better paint job I've seen, even when you compare it to a much more expensive car. So in terms of manufacturing quality, I give it a solid A. It's well built and it looks almost as good as a Lexus all around. So let me take you to inside, talk a little bit more about the interior. And I also want to talk about the other variations of the E-Class, including the E53 Coupe, which is an amazing performance car that is very different from this car. So I'll talk about that a little bit later on as well. In terms of interior, this Mercedes has the modern touches by Mercedes. So it has the 2-panel feature here with a large MBUX system, which works really well. The digital dash is beautifully designed and engineered. I love the lacquered finish, even though it's a little bit of too much glossy black trims all the way here. So that's always a bit of a problem. But Mercedes does say that these panels have extra coating on them for durability, so I'm sure they will last a long time without having too many scratches. But generally speaking, I'm kind of against too many glossy black trims. But it looks really good on this Mercedes because it's also broken up by these lines to make it look like a kind of wooden panel. Of course, it is not. But the system works well. Both the stereo, which is the Burmester stereo, all the controls. Also here, these are all the modern Mercedes control. Works well because we still get the buttons for HVAC, for temperature control. And then we get the radio control here and then driving mode over here as well. So it's pretty well standard now. There's no need to use the touchpad here, which is always awkward. You can just reach out and do this, although it is a bit of a reach here, so it's kind of far, at least for me. But at least it's touch panel and it's very legible, easy to see. I think the steering is a bit busy, but it's usable. Once you get used to the Mercedes style, it's not a problem. You understand how to use it. Always frustrated with the Mercedes stock for the drive selection, park, drive, neutral, reverse. But this is the way it is with all Mercedes, so you just can't do anything about that. Otherwise, quality inside is excellent. The fit and finish is really fantastic. As good as Lexus inside, and it looks expensive. People walk in and they say right away, wow, this feels really expensive. So now I'm on the road with the E450, and what I really like is that it has almost a perfect and ideal balance for a luxury model among many different factors, including the cornering, the handling, the steering effort, braking, transmission shifting, engine performance, accelerations, quietness and refinement, and noise, vibration, and harshness. It's hard to get all of the factors done just right, but in the Mercedes, they've engineered this well, they calibrate it and tuned very well. So as soon as you step on the gas, first of all, it takes off right away, thanks to a very decent engine and powertrain, but also because this one has a mild hybrid system. So there's no turbo lag because there is an electric motor helping you right off the bat when you step on the gas. And so the power delivery is actually very smooth. So I really like the way the engineers is using the mild hybrid to enhance the overall feel of the driving. It does this better than most other mid-size cars or luxury models I see out there, and Mercedes seems to have perfected the mild hybrid approach to a drivetrain. As you can imagine, it's really difficult to get the perfect ride and handling in a much bigger SUV because of the physics. Basically, it's taller and center of gravity is higher. So there is an advantage in driving something like this, and it really shows when you take this E450 on the road. Overall, I really enjoy driving it. Yes, it's not, again, a sports sedan by any means, but it performs better than expected and better than most other mid-size luxury segment. And I think is kind of the benchmark when it comes to the ability to provide a sufficient performance and giving you still a reasonable amount of fun to drive factor.
As I began to conclude on all things to do with Mercedes E-Class, I do also want to mention how much I enjoy the other variations of the E-Class that includes the sedan and also the amazing E53 Coupe, which I also had up for 1 week. That thing is a bit of a rocket ship, and I was surprised how much I enjoy driving it, especially in comparison to, let's say, BMW 3 Series, 4 Series, even the 6 Series, and also compared to some of the Japanese counterparts. And I think the Mercedes have dialed in just the right amount of performance and a neutral balance that is sometimes difficult to achieve. So kudos to Mercedes for coming up with many different versions of E-Class, each one with its own style and character. And this is why the E-Class continued to be a leader in its segment, and other manufacturers and other brands just haven't been able to catch up, simply because they know exactly what the customers want and they're able to provide them with different versions of E-Class. So I very much enjoy driving both the E-Class wagon style as well as the coupe version, and I think there are many more other variations of E-Class I look forward to driving in the future, and a lot more to come your way. But for now, this is my casual conversational review of the E-Class, particularly on the all-terrain wagon. I hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to catching up with you again. Thank you so much for watching. Take care and see you soon.